So what's the next stage when we've picked everything?
Well, this is the exciting bit. It's time to go stripping.
Oh, right.
So the picking was the easy bit. Now we've got to remove the foliage off this lot.
Yeah, that's quite some task, isn't it? But what's the real reason for doing it so assiduously, David?
Well, it's all to do with the drying. It's important that we dry the flowers as quickly as we can. That reduces the chance of mould setting in on the flowers.
So what happens to this lot when all the leaves have been stripped?
What we do then is we put them into bunches of about a dozen pieces, and we keep the bunches relatively small because we want them to dry as quickly as we can. So the smaller the bunch, the quicker they dry. And we twist wire around to hold them all together. They're then hung onto a string in the shed, and a couple of times a week as they dry, obviously the stems shrink, so you need just to put another twist on, just to keep them tight.
That's clever, isn't it?
So,
it's brilliant. And what are the ideal conditions for drying?
You want a constant temperature and good air movement through the shed, really, and darkness is probably the most important thing, because if the sunlight gets in, the flowers will fade really quickly, and again, that's what it's all about. We'll be drying these for about 4 weeks, and when the shed's full, we'll move the whole batch over to the barn, and they'll be put into storage until we need them for building the garland in November.
I'm going to make some Christmas decorations, not quite on the scale of Cotehele, but perhaps with a modern twist. And so what I'm looking for walking around the garden are things with lovely scents and textures, rosemary or sage, lovely, lovely fragrance. And I'm also looking for colours, and it always surprises me how much colour I can actually find in the garden this late, with rose hips, hydrangeas, Chinese lanterns, lots of things like that. So that's what I'm now going to go and find. I've just spotted this lovely Iris foetidissima hiding under the beech tree, and I'm going to pick that for our Christmas wreath. We all have our own ideas about how we want to decorate our house for Christmas, but we thought we'd go and see a few professionals and get some tips from them too.
This is a nice, simple but very effective ivy ball decoration that we're making. We start by making a simple ball frame out of ordinary garden wire. Then you need to collect some nice pliable ivy strands from your garden so that you can wind them around the frame. Once your ball's covered in ivy, you can then hang something in the middle of it. The choice is endless. You could use something smelly such as this lavender, a natural decoration such as fir cones, or even some fruit such as these medlars.
Another good tip is to spray your holly berries with hair lacquer, and this prevents the berries from dropping off over the Christmas period.
If you're using Oasis to make decorations, instead of making big holes, you can use cocktail sticks stuck onto candles, or even the same with fruit to hold things into the Oasis.
This is a Victorian traditional decoration for your Christmas tree, which will also help to make your room smell nice. We're going to cut out a segment from each side of the orange. You have to bear in mind you need to leave a centre section which is going to be the handle of the basket. Pull the segment away. So once you've taken the flesh out from the basket of the orange, you need to then use your clothes and decorate the outer edge of the basket. Put a ribbon on the handle and it's ready to hang onto your tree.
So there are some really good practical tips there, and I'm going to show you how to make a party piece for your Christmas table. The first thing I've got is an Oasis ring, 10 inches in diameter, and I'm going to add the rosemary that I picked in the garden. I've already seared this in boiling water because it makes it last longer, and I just want to completely hide all the green with the rosemary. So once I've got all the rosemary in, I'm going to add hypericum berry, which is a lovely thing, widely available even if you haven't got it in your garden. And the good thing with hypericum berry is you can add the berry, but don't chuck the base of the stem because it's quite expensive when you have to buy it. And that actually adds a different shape and helps cover the green oasis. rose hips, and there are still lots of these in the garden, so we can put plenty of these in because they're for free. And now I'm going to add the flowers, and I'm going to use anemone coronarias, this beautiful white one with a red centre, which is very Christmassy, and they last well in oasis, and some lilies to make the whole room smell fantastic. So first of all, the anemones, and these will be fine in oasis for 5 or 6 days. So now I'm going to add lilies, which will give fantastic scent to your Christmas house. I've already removed the anthers because they stain your clothes, the pollen does, and if it gets on cat's fur and they then ingest the pollen, it can be poisonous. So it's a good idea for those 2 reasons to take it out. So these go in as the final touch. But in fact, it's not completely the final touch, because into this vase, which has shoulders to it, and that's important, as you'll see in a minute, I'm going to fill it up with cranberries. And the great thing about cranberries, as you'll know from if you buy them a bit before Christmas, is that they've got an incredibly long shelf life, and they last 3 to 4 weeks, in fact. Now I'm going to put a big chunky candle in the middle of the vase like that. So now a relatively standard table centre becomes something slightly more glamorous, and you slot it over and rest it on the shoulders of the vase. All I need do is light the candle. With the rest of the stuff I've picked from the garden, I've made a series of different Christmas wreaths. The first one has got a really strong Mexican feel, which you wouldn't believe that we'd pick lots of it at Berryfields, but we have. Chinese lanterns, Iris foetidissima, spindle, borlotti beans that we harvested about 6 weeks ago, and miscanthus seed heads. The next one has really zany, strong colours, with pink provided by spindleberry and anemone coronarias, and the orange by the Chinese lanterns, and I've put some acid green euphorbia in here too. The next one has perhaps a more masculine feel. It almost looks like a leather sofa, I think, made from photinia leaves wrapped round an oasis base and pinned with pearly-headed pins, and it looks fantastic hanging above the fireplace.
What's nice about this wreath is that it's completely biodegradable. It's just made of dogwood stems, and then we put loads of berries on it as well from around the garden, and the viburnum tinus, the metallic blue berries, look fantastic against it, and there's just some ivy interwoven again, so it'll completely biodegrade. And I've also put these up, these pecker slices, to encourage birds to feed here as well. So in a way, they've got a main course, and then they've got some pudding as well. And if the birds are still hungry, they can munch on these decorations made of seeds. Well, I'm really pleased with how it's turned out here. It's definitely jollied up the whole area. The planters look great, and I couldn't resist but use the extra plants we had left over and just pot them up informally around the base there. And those hellebores, well, I had to squeeze them in. They look gorgeous. With the bay trees here, very simple. All we've done is put some tinsel and some baubles on them. You can just decorate them. They're like outdoor Christmas trees. Now, the next thing I need to do is the lighting. Now, you may think, oh, Joe's left all his shopping out again. But no, this has got to be the most simple form of lighting. It's a Mexican idea. And all you do is get a paper bag, roll down the top so it holds its shape together, just like that. Put a couple of handfuls of sand into the bottom to weigh it down. Make sure the shape is nice and open, and then get a tea light, drop it in there, and make sure it's pretty well buried into the sand so it's not going to go anywhere. And you light it, and the whole thing glows and gives the garden a nice flickering effect. It's really, really effective in the garden, and you can lay them out in a nice linear fashion like this, or dot them around the garden. But wherever you put them, make sure that they're always attended, because there is a naked flame in there. I'm just going to do a few more.
Now, it's taken nearly a whole year to make, but in November, the Cotehele Garland was reaching completion, and Carol went down to see it in its final stages.
Despite a cold, wet spring and a changeable summer, David and his team have succeeded in growing thousands of flowers. But it's very exciting, isn't it? Wow! It's belting! It's fantastic!
Looking good, isn't it?
Oh, what? It's just absolutely brilliant. And you're only just over halfway, or not halfway?
We're around halfway. So
This side's all done, but the other side's looking a bit green, isn't it? What did you do first?
the process starts. We have a 12mm Hessian rope.
Yeah.
And to that we attach bunches of pittosporum.
How long is it?
60 foot long.
Yeah.
And you attach the bunches with a contraption that you seal sacks of potatoes with, so it twists the wire and holds it on tight. We then get everyone from the estate to come in and give us a hand to lift it up into place.
It's great up here, isn't it?
Oh, it is, yes.
So what's the process then? Which flowers go in first?
The first flowers we put in are the statice.
Yeah.
Because it's nice and compact and small. We have 4 different colours. We've got blues, pinks, whites, yellows.
Chunky too, aren't they?
They're very robust flowers as well.
Yeah.
The next thing we put in is the helichrysums. It's a lovely strong flower again, but nice and robust, so it actually is another secondary base flower, if you like.
Right.
Each layer you put in, you gradually let it come out a little bit further.
Right.
So you're just gradually getting it bigger.
Right.
And then you end up with the Limonium sawarii. And then we've got some ornamental grasses in there as well, just to give a bit more definition. And then we finally finish off with the honesty, because it's the most reflective.
So when you're putting these things in, you don't actually have any wire on them at all?
No, not at all. It's because of the way the foliage has been put together. There's a lot of stems there, and when you put the extra flowers in, they just knit together really well. You don't actually tend to lose any flowers at all, and it's just all the stems are just knitting together, hold all of the flowers in place.
The tradition of the Christmas garland at Cotehele is kept alive and well, and this year's garland is looking more glorious than ever. It's quite interesting, isn't it? Because other gardeners have forgotten what's happened in their garden throughout the year, but you can see for yourself just what you've done.
Yeah, exactly. We can see which ones have done well and which ones haven't, and yeah, we get to live summer again, really, I guess.
I bet you're really looking forward to the public coming in. That's the real test, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
I can't imagine anything that could possibly feel more Christmassy.
No, I don't want to trim your lights. Come on, Sarah, you haven't voiced an opinion about this. What do you really think?
Well, I have to confess to not being totally convinced about conifers, but I'm really willing to be persuaded. But I really love the different heights and colours and shapes of them, and I think you've put them together beautifully, actually.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it develops. I mean, it's never going to be in this fixed state. We're going to have to tweak it around. We're going to have to move things, play around with it over time. But
it's very festive, isn't it? Eh?
It is
very
festive.
Christmassy.
Well, I tell you what, if you think it looks OK now, I think it will look really festive in the dark.
It's about as far as you can get from that 1970s image of a conifer. We'll have to thin things out in the new year, but for the moment I think we've created a place full of interest and intrigue for those dark winter days and nights. Although really, it's time to be heading indoors.
This is lovely, Joe.
well, thanks very much. Yeah, they're very effective, aren't they? The flickering light of candles are just fantastic.
I think it's immensely welcoming, don't you?
It's lovely, warm colours. And did you do those as well? I like those birdseed Christmas decorations.
Treats for the birds.
Talking of warm, come on, I'm getting cold.
John Craven and Nicky Chapman reveal the hidden treasures of Britain's stately homes, next on UKtv Gardens in Castle in the Country at Christmas.